Well, that brings us to your soul and the law of attraction, because the question actually has a lot to do with the law of attraction. So perhaps what we need to do is just discuss a little bit about the law of attraction. That sound all right? Your soul, remember, is what?
Emotions.
Your emotions. Alright, so that's your soul. And of course, your soul has hundreds of attributes, all of the same type. They are all the things that define your personality. And your personality modifies as you absorb more and more different emotions and different feelings and develop different desires and different passions. That's what happens to your soul. So there's your soul. Your soul creates everything that happens to you. Everything. So if you're in a situation that seems to be a no-win situation, your soul created that. And it's a soul emotion that created that. And the soul emotion is an emotion of saying, no matter what I'm doing, I'm useless. No matter what I do, I'm stuffed. Now, that's a hopeless emotion, isn't it? Can you see that? So it's actually a hopeless emotion that exists in the soul that situation is triggering for you to work through. And the only way you're going to be able to work through it is by grieving about it. So when you grieve about the hopeless emotion that's in your soul, the hopeless emotion will leave you, and then you will no longer be confronted with what seem to be hopeless situations.
Yeah, but what if another person's involved and you're trying to do the best for that person? That's right.
It makes no difference how many people are involved. You will find if you feel your emotion, everything around you will automatically change and adjust to suit the new soul condition inside of you. Now, yesterday, can I give a few examples of this first? Yesterday, I was talking to the group over at Dubbo, and I gave an example of when I was on a flight coming back from London to Australia. I was on this flight, and I always make sure, because I'm vegan, I don't eat meat or dairy products or anything like that. And I always make sure that I tell an airline what I can eat, so that on the flight I can have something to eat. So, as per usual, all of the flights that I had overseas, I always do that. And on this flight coming back to Australia, everyone in the plane got fed, and I didn't get a meal. So it all got, you know how it all gets distributed, and it all gets distributed, and all gets distributed. And then, like, I was the only one, everyone, even my girl next to me, she's got her meal, you know. And she got her meal that I ordered for her as well, which was also a vegan meal. But I didn't get my vegan meal. And so I could have, at that moment, put up my hand and said, look, what's going on? Where's my meal? Couldn't I?
Yeah.
Which is the average response most people would have done, isn't it? Okay.
Did you say she was vegan as well?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you were left out.
I was left out, yeah. So what was my emotion creating this event? I'm overlooked and left out, and nobody really cares about me. You follow me?
Yeah.
So what I did was I sat down and just allowed myself to get into that emotion. And my soulmate's next to me, she's saying things like, you sure you don't want some of mine? Because she was feeling a bit guilty. And I said, no, I don't want any of yours because this is my creation. I need to own this. Then she was a bit angry with me for being a martyr. I said, no, not a martyr, I am just, trying to stay in this emotion. You watch what will happen if I can deal with this emotion. So what I did was I just allowed myself to sit down and put my headphones on, and I started crying. So I cried for about 15 minutes on the plane. You get away with it on planes. Lots of people cry on planes, and they've just left their loved ones somewhere else. You get away with it, you do. And so, slight concern from other passengers, but that's all. And so I cry the emotion, and I didn't connect to all of it, but after about 15 minutes, I had two attendants come up to me and say, oh, you didn't actually get a meal, did you? And I said, no. And they said, well, what do you like? And I said, well, I'm vegan, and what I'd really like is a big bowl of something like pumpkin soup or something like that, and a big salad. That's what I'd really like. I was being a bit facetious, though. I didn't expect to get that. But I said, look, anything that's not meat, I'll look at, They said, oh, we'll see what we can do. And 5 minutes later, they come back from first class, with a big bowl of soup and a big bowl of salad for me. Exactly what I wanted. Yeah.
So you just need to actually consciously put yourself into a mode that can bring up that emotion.
That's all you need to do.
You don't need to actually think about what the actual emotion might be, word to it, nothing. It's okay, just feel it.
Just feel it,
Try
and
get
when
in
you
there.
feel it and experience it, everything around you will automatically change and adjust to your new soul condition.
And those techniques that you spoke about earlier that you're going to talk to us about, we could also use one of those techniques.
Yes,
in making that divine connection.
True, yeah. But if you're not willing to feel your emotions, you will find that your life is so... Like you're going to be triggered every day with all of the emotions that are inside of you until you decide to experience them. So understand... Does everyone understand what I was saying there with what was going on?
Yeah.
The power of your soul is that all you need do is clear away the emotion that created the event, and you will automatically change future events. That's all you need to do. You don't have to talk to anybody about it. In fact, if you talk to someone about it, usually you're avoiding the emotion. You don't need to talk about it, you don't need to rave on about it or anything, you just need to feel the emotion.
Can you just clear up something for me that's really confusing me?
Yep.
Why walk out with the emotion, feeling it, grieving over it was a word you used?
Yep.
Well, with law of attraction, aren't you attracting more? And
No,
that's
this is a false belief.
Well, thank you.
Okay? And I really need to clarify that, so I'll ask that question again. The question is, if you're in the emotion, aren't you actually creating the event and attracting more of the event? And the answer is definitely no. The only time you attract more of something is when you refuse to feel the emotion. Right? It's when you refuse to feel the causal emotion, and I must state that it's the causal one that you need to feel. So in other words, I could have sat there on the plane crying about not getting fed. But is that the causal emotion? No. And I could have cried there all day and nothing would have changed if I cried about not getting fed. Right? So that wasn't the causal emotion. I had to get deeper into the causal emotion, and the causal emotion is being overlooked, uncared for. Right? Those were the causal emotions that I allowed myself to get into. Once I felt that emotion, everything instantly changed.
So the lady that was talking earlier about drinking in the family, we didn't actually get to, you asked us what we thought the deeper emotion was, and we didn't get to it.
The deeper emotion in terms of with regard to this, with regard to being angry, is always that I'm avoiding this deep grief that I feel inside of myself. I don't want to experience the deep, painful grief that I actually feel, that I've tried my hardest in my life and nothing seemed to work. Do you follow me? And that emotion is the causal emotion. If I can connect to that causal emotion and cry about that for as long as it takes, might take 3 days, 4 days, a week or whatever, cry about that and release that, then what will happen is automatically the law of attraction will begin changing. It's the grief inside of me that got passed down even to my children. And it's the grief inside of them that causes them to go and find substances to abuse to avoid their own grief. Do you follow me? So it's actually the grief inside of me that's created these events. And I need to find the cause. If I don't find the cause, the effect will continue occurring for the rest of my existence. And I don't mean just your earthly existence. I mean the rest of your existence, even in the spirit world, until you find the cause and release it inside of you. For the rest of your existence, you will attract similar events.
Excuse me, AJ. What if you can't cry anymore?
What if you can't cry anymore? Be patient and you'll get asked an answer.
So when you go into that space, do you have to cry?
Can I just stop you for a sec?
Yeah.
What's the emotion you're feeling?
I'm just trying to work that out. I'm going to ask you about that.
Yeah.
Right now.
Isn't it being overlooked?
It's obvious you have to work it out.
What was the emotion?
I just was...
You went,
Her arm was hurting.
what was the emotion?
Um,
Because all of these things are good
what I wanted
opportunities.
to ask you about was what if you're doing the anger thing and you don't really know what's underneath that? Can you just, if you don't know what the emotion is, how do you get to where you find out what that emotion is?
You're doing the anger thing because you already know what's underneath and you don't want it.
Yeah, but what I mean is that That's just an example actually, but if you're in a situation where you really don't know what the emotion is that's going on underneath whatever's happening.
No, but we always know what the emotion is underneath. What I'm saying is...
That's because we're consciously trying to do it and we shouldn't be consciously
Exactly.
trying to do it.
Exactly. As soon as you want rules and consciousness, as soon as you try to use this, you are going to find you're going to struggle every single time. Because this isn't capable of understanding emotion. Right? Understand that as soon as you're in a state of annoyance, anger, frustration, and any of those emotions, you have already chosen to deny what's underneath. You've already chosen it. It's not that you don't know what's there, it's that something is there and you don't want it.
Do you have to be able to name the emotion
No.
to deal with it?
No.
That's not good.
No. Not at all. In fact, if you need to name an emotion before you feel it, you're going to really struggle on the divine path. Yeah. And that will be the reason why you need to name the emotion is why. There's an emotion driving that even. What's the emotion driving your need to know what it is? Control. You want to make sure that you know what the emotion is before you experience it. Why would you want to do that? Because you're actually so afraid of experiencing it that you want to have some kind of intellectual control over this whole process. That's why you're doing that. Right? And that's okay. You can choose to do that. Now, getting back to your question, this gets back down to the issue of suppression. This is what happens to us generally. We have a painful emotion, so let's just write down pain. Then what we want to do is we don't want to feel our pain, so we suppress our pain. What happens then is we have a tendency to so we stop crying there, because we're sick and tired of doing that, and we get into this state, or annoyance or frustration. And then, particularly if I'm a woman, I'm not allowed to do that either, right? That's not very feminine, is it? To get angry all the time, right? Get criticised for that. And what happens when you're around men, when you're angry? Well, of course, most men are angry too, right? So what do? They just yell and scream back, you know. So we start doing this with that as well. And what happens then? We start getting into this state. Now we're starting to shut down all emotion. We're trying to keep ourselves away from all emotion. And you can, when you shut down your underlying emotion, you will create another state. And the top state is that how you spell numb?
Yeah.
Is that you just become totally numb to your entire existence. Right? Now, if you've done that, what's happened is you've probably firstly gone through these states in your life, not coped with them and not dealt with the underlying emotion, and then put another cap on top of each one. Right? Now, we can undo all of that. You can undo all of that. You don't have to stay in these states. But it requires some bravery and some courage. And the way we get bravery and courage is the same way we get most other things, I find, and that is via my connection with God. That's how I get it. Because in myself, I'm not very brave and I'm not very courageous. But it's my connection with God and my connection with truth that makes me brave or courageous. And the same will apply with yourself. How much of a love of truth do you have inside of your heart? That's what's going to actually open this back up. So what we want to do is get back down, get back down, get back down, and then we start feeling this underlying thing that we don't even know probably is there at the moment. And that underlying thing might be this really big feeling that I should never have been born, or an underlying feeling that I'm just totally unworthy to even exist, or any of those kinds of emotions. That's probably what's created all of that in the beginning. And all I need to do is experience that just like a child, without judgment. The child doesn't judge itself when it goes kicking and screaming on the floor, does it? No? No? When it's doing this, that's what it's doing. It doesn't care how embarrassed you are. Does it?
No.
So why do you care when you're feeling an emotion of that judgment? Why do you want to do that? It's because of all the judgments that have been placed on you. It's because of all of this conditioning that you've had through your life, right? So when you get into that childhood anger, you'll feel like just kicking and screaming on the floor and cracking a tantrum. And the kids will say, oh, I'm so glad she's now cracking a tantrum just on the floor instead of smacking me behind the ears, right? Or I'm so glad she's cracking a tantrum on the floor if it's your husband instead of yelling and screaming at me, right? The truth is, when you fully own and experience your own emotion, what happens is everyone around you doesn't have to experience it. The instant you choose to not experience your own emotion, it affects every single living thing and every single inanimate object around you. Right? And I'm not just saying right in here in Bathurst, I'm saying in the universe. Your energy that you're holding on to inside of yourself affects the entire universe.
How many times do you cry a day?
And it depends on what I'm processing. And in the last about 3 months, I was dealing with some really intense soulmate loss emotions, and I cried for 5 hours a day for 9 weeks. Now, I dealt with lots and lots of emotions in that time. And the biggest emotion, when I got to the last deep core emotion, it was all about this feeling about that I've got no idea how to love myself and no idea how anybody's going to teach me. Right? And when I felt that, the irony is the moment after that, I felt totally blissful and happy.
Under the blessing, one of the ladies cried nearly all the time.
Yep.
Through the process.
Yep.
So she was dealing with that emotion.
Yeah, often we receive divine love, and divine love in itself, the reception of divine love, causes us to actually expose the emotion and be open emotionally. And so any emotions that are in error inside of us begin to just be expressed. So it's fine to do that. The issue is, if you're crying all the time about the same thing, then you are not finding the cause, and that's not very productive. So let's say I'm a person who's crying all the time because I'm alone and I haven't got a partner. I'm not dealing with the underlying causal emotion in that case. The underlying causal emotion is that I've created not having a partner because of an emotion inside of me that says, I don't want anybody close to me. And I'm not letting myself feel that. I'm just thinking that I do want somebody close to me, someone to love me. But inside of myself, I'm feeling I'm unlovable. And I don't want to feel that emotion. But my law of attraction has shown me already that I've created that. So right now, if I'm not with a partner and I want to be with one, the truth is that want to be is only here. It's not here. Because if it was here, you would already be with one. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah.
Yeah? So oftentimes what we do is we tell ourselves certain messages in here, but in here we have totally the opposite emotion. And a lot of times our addictions are a good indicator of what we're avoiding inside of ourselves. So I'm going along to the club, I want to meet some more women. I'll go along to another club and meet some more women or whatever. And I'm trying to meet different women because I want to find a woman that I want to spend the rest of life with, but I'm actually alone. All of that is just a waste of my time. What I need to do is firstly tune into the emotion that I feel inside of myself that causes me to repel women. And as soon as I do that, ironically, there'll be a lineup of women who want to be with me. And I'll be able to choose the one that I feel is most suitable. Does everyone understand that?
Yeah.
Yeah? And that applies to all sorts of issues. You think about it, even in any relationship issues, quite often what happens is we'll have, you'll be on the opposite side of the room, and let's say I'm single, and I'm a single male, and opposite side of the room I see a lovely lady that I want to get to know. So I start walking towards her, right? So the first motive to walk towards her is one of desire, isn't it? Desire to get to know her. And that's pure, isn't it, generally? So, although it might be driven by sexual desire, perhaps it might not be so purely. But generally it's pure. I want to get to know this person. So you take a walk towards her, but then what kicks in?
Fear of rejection.
Yeah. Like if I've got a feeling that I might get rejected, that's going to kick in now. Now is my desire pure anymore?
No.
No, because now it's being affected by a fear, and so I'm going to, do I want to do this, you know? And a lot of times we won't even get to making the steps towards that woman, would we? We would actually stop in being so much fear that we won't actually make the decision to get to know her at all. So, oftentimes we start out with a pure desire, but it triggers all of these underlying emotions that are in us that we've all kept under wraps, and all of a sudden are there, and what do we do then? We make a choice based on the emotions that are in error, rather than continuing to make a choice that are based on pure emotions. So, how am I going to deal with that? I would need to deal with the fact of potential rejection. So what I need to do is go back through my life and feel the things that I haven't felt where I have been rejected.